Messi. Messi. Oh, my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. Oh, that is extraordinary. What a head, son. What a head. Back of the net.
Hello, and welcome to the Not a Pundit podcast. It is election week here in Ireland, but we're going to avoid all that. For the next however long this episode will be, you can forget about all the worries and all the hardships of real life. We are going to talk pure and utter football. I'm delighted to be joined as ever by Conor Glennon and Nathan Byrne, but I'm especially delighted to be joined by our special guest, Mr. George Cairns. Now, we spoke to Jerry Strain recently enough about Hamilton Academical, and it was great to get an insight. But George is the man behind the youth development, which was like a key aspect of that episode. He has brought through lads that are playing on the continent and playing in continental football right from day dot all the way to internationals. And there is no better person I can think of for us to get that level of insight to the real world of football. So, George, thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem, James. That made me look very interesting, didn't it?
well, you are. See, this is the thing. So, like every interview, I'm going to do the normal question first. How did you get into football, and how did you end up becoming like an academy director? Because it doesn't seem like the most natural thing to kind of go, I want to be coaching the young lads.
Yeah,
and bringing them through.
It's the hardest working one, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, basically, it was by accident, if truth be told. I had my own young team, Clydebank, where I'm born and bred in Clydebank, and my son played for that team, under 10s, and he was scouted for Hamilton a couple of weeks when he was playing. And we ventured through to Hamilton for him to get a trial with them. And that day, we were just beginning the cycle of youth development. We kind of came off the old-fashioned sort of S forms onto a kind of an academy structure. And Hamilton were interested back then that, could we start an academy with this football club? I was just watching and seeing that the chap was basically struggling with two teams at the same time. And I only asked him if he wanted a hand. And I gave him a hand that day, to be fair. And luckily enough, the chairman of the football club was there that day. The director of youth. That day was Les Gray, who's now the vice chairman with the SFA now. So Les has worked his way up the ladder as well. So Les was one of the guys way back then that wanted to start the youth development at Hamilton, along with a chap called Ronnie McDonald. He was the owner of the club for the 18 years I was there. And basically, by accident, the chairman came and asked if I'd be interested in coming helping. And it moved for there, basically. So the first 3 or 4 months, I ran my wee boys club, and I also went through there and helped them do theirs. And we basically progressed from there to basically being a coach. And then from a coach, there was a chap called John Bean, who was the original director at Hamilton Academical Football Club of youth. Les Gray was the initial boss. He was the director. Then we had a head of youth below him, which was John Bean. And then we had several coaches like myself and sort of thing. So way back in the start, it was a kind of slow process to get to where it got to. And John Bean left after a few years, and a chap called Frankie McAvoy took the role. Frankie's went on to do great things as well, as you know. Frankie was obviously number 2 Alec Neil when he left. He left Hamilton Accies to go to Norwich. And he took Norwich into the Premiership. So Frankie's done that. He's done a few. He's been manager of Preston. He's moved on. He was the number 2 at Hearts as well for a while under Naismith. So he then became the academy director. And basically, when Alec Neil was offered the job, he took Frankie in, and then he asked George. I was the academy manager at that time. I left my post for Arnold Clark, which I worked full time, just to go and manage the academy. So I was just managing the academy, helping Frankie do the actual job. And then when Frankie moved on, they offered myself the job, and I took it. So it was basically by accident.
It's like the best nights out. It's the ones you don't expect.
You don't expect that. That's the thing. You don't expect that. So I'd worked really hard. I was always 7 days a week, no matter what, with the boys' club, with the academy, looking for players. At that time, we didn't have a lot of people, and we were just in the process of building that. But with good people around about us, people like Les Gray, as I said, I keep saying, Les Gray, Ronnie McDonald, the owner of the football club, Colin McGowan, in the background working out for sponsorships and different things and trying to get the money to put it into the system, and it carried on from there basically. So
that's one thing we've found from talking to kind of people in clubs all across the world is it takes a village to keep a club alive, even just financially, but just from a culture perspective. But also, like, the biggest thing for me from talking to yourself and talking to Jerry is, Hamilton have had such an impact in football. Like the I suppose diaspora of people who've been at the club has gone so wide.
Yeah, no, it's Hamilton's a fantastic journey if people actually look at it. And to be fair, Jerry's later stages and that, long later stages and that, he's obviously running the youth development just now. So the 18 years basically I was there, he wasn't really nothing to do with that sort of side of it. He only came in the later stages to do that. So the journey was a long journey. It was a tough journey because at the start of the journey you didn't compete as well as what you thought you might have competed. You were going out and you're finding these young players and you're trying to make these young players stars, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But when you are in Hamilton and your sort of surrounding area is Motherwell, Premiership club, you look at Celtic, Rangers, these guys are all on your doorstep. So the process of trying to get the better players to you was tough because they're going to go to Celtic and Rangers, especially if they're Glasgow or even the surrounding areas. Anybody that has that sort of markets, they're going to go to Celtic or Rangers. So that's a thing that we thought, right, okay, well, we'll lose players to Celtic and Rangers. So what we'll do is we'll just try and work hard with players to keep them. And to be fair, we did that and we did it really well. We took players and we made a success.
And identifying those players, how, like, kind of what's the first port of call? Is it tournaments like the Milk Cup or the Foil Cup, or where are you finding these, like, kind of youth players?
We were lucky enough. We had people like Ronnie McDonald who just loved this man just loved to go anywhere and watch games and pick out a diamond. He'd pick out a player, any games, any level, he would look. And we'd built a scouting network as well, which we kind of took in locally. And then you would obviously outskirts of Glasgow, and then your network would get a wee bit bigger. And you would generally just try and pick the better players. But, sometimes that was tough because obviously back then, one or two of these players would be way Celtic or way Rangers, so you're trying to compete to see if you can try and sign them at under 11s football. It sounds crazy that you're actually trying to go and sign a player and talk to them and say, listen, what do you want to do? Why would you go to Celtic? Why would you go to Rangers? Why would you go here? Why would you? You're trying to compete to try and get these young players in. So you identified them locally and you brought them in. Now, the thing that I love the most is when we bring a player in at 8 or 9. You don't know they're going to be a player. You don't know they're going to be a first team player. And what you've got to try and do is you've got to try and take that journey, through the age levels. If you sign someone at under 10s and they're playing under 10s, your job as a coach is to get them to under 11s to 12s, 12s to 13s. No, the journey is long and you've got to have patience, and the journey is up and down. And, you'll have pitfalls, you'll have loads of things come into it. Mental health's a big thing now. I don't know if you guys will know that. Mental health's huge. Mental health's huge now, and there's a lot of pitfalls, and we always try to educate parents. Parents are but basically parents can be the one that stops the kid developing. And that's the thing, that's the number one source. We think, you play a game and you don't do very well in it, and a parent then tells you, don't do it, the coach has got to try and pick him back up. The coach has got to try and get his mindset right. So I always try to educate parents. Parents are brilliant. They bring the kids to the training 3 nights a week. They bring them to the football matches. They'll have 4 or 5 other kids that are all scattered all over the place. So, I've did it as a parent myself, so I understand the pitfalls. But it's huge. It's huge. And in trying to get that young player, if we look at the journey, if we want to use the guys at an island, just now playing for Larne, I signed Sean when he was 8. I signed Andrew Ryan when he was 9, and we took them through the journey. Sean, I have a standard joke with Sean Want, plays for Larne. When I was leaving, he sent me a lovely video telling me, you're only probably one of the only guys that believed in me. At every age group, you kept me. You kept me at every age group. You seen something, you kept me at every age group. And he played every age group, and he was successful, and he's successful just now. And that's the bit that I like and I love. He had a baby. Well, his girlfriend had a baby a couple of weeks ago. He sent you a nice picture with a kid in it, and that's the bond you have. If
Well,
you
it must be amazing to see him just, from that wee little 9-year-old progressing to just even outside of football. A dad must be amazing to watch that journey. But as a 2-time league champion and a cup champion, that's not a bad old CV there.
No, of course it's great to see that, and yeah, I left 5 months ago, and if I'm going to be brutally honest, I've went and watched most of the kids that have came through our system, and I'll be honest with you, if I was to singly go and watch every single kid that's came through our system playing a level of football, I'd be doing it every Saturday for a couple of years. And that might sound frightening, if I say I watched 4 players play for the one team a couple of weeks ago for St Caddocks. I watched a young Danny Armstrong play in Europe for Kilmarnock. And then obviously you've got Sean, you've got Andrew playing in the conference for in Europe as well with Larne. That's an amazing feat. It's huge. You've got players like Mikey Devlin, Scott McMahon, and George Stanger, who basically play for Ayr United. They've came through our system. I look at George. I mean, some of the players my room's full of signed tops for different players that have made different eras. George Stanger, we signed. And George represented New Zealand in an under-23s World Cup and got to the quarterfinals. He also represented New Zealand in the Olympics. Now, that's some feat. That's a huge feat. When you actually sit back and you think, I've got his signed jersey, the New Zealand signed jersey for the Olympic jersey and the World Cup jersey. It's not you look at it, you think, wow, that kid played in the World Cup.
And with players like that, obviously hindsight is 2020 and rose tinted glass and all that, but do you see it as far back as 9, 10, 11? You go, he's going to go all the way.
You don't see it way back there. All you can do is believe the system that you have is going to help them get there, and you then have to have the belief that the manager is going to play them. The manager has to play them, and that's one thing we do at Hamilton, or we did at Hamilton. Managers play their young kids. That was really, really important. They bought into the ethos of the football club. We've had many. We talk about players. I could talk forever. We talk about players, but we talk about staff that came through Hamilton as well. We've got Victoria McIntyre was a physio with ourselves, starting our academy, worked her way up to the first team physio, and now a first team physio at Bournemouth. With Kevin Simon, who came in as a sports scientist, now in charge of sports science and medicine at Aberdeen Football Club. We've got Colin Clancy, charge of sports science and medicine at Hibernian Football Club. Even people in that environment have moved on to bigger and better things as well, which is fantastic. And that's all. Hamilton Accies was a club that promoted. If something out there that you can go for it. And as well as players. Plenty of staff members have moved on. Alec Neil was obviously a player with ourselves and coached our under 17s in the academy, then became our first team manager. And at one stage before Alec left, we were sitting top of the Premiership.
Yeah.
We beat Celtic 1-0 and we were sitting top of the Premiership. And then a couple of weeks later, obviously, I left to go to Norwich and took Norwich up to the Premiership, which is a huge feat. Martin Cannon was the same. Martin Cannon worked with Alec down at Sunderland and down at Stoke as well. Martin Cannon was our manager that came through our system as well. He came through our youth system as well as being a player. The players would come in and coach the kids as well. Have that rapport. So when Martin became the first team manager, Martin knew all the good players. Martin knew the players that were coming through. Martin knew how to speak to them. Martin knew their names, which was really, really important. He knew their names, so he could speak to them. He could. They weren't this. Oh, he's the manager. I can't speak to him. We didn't have that. We didn't have that at all, and that was a good thing. And Martin kept us in the Premiership for 4 seasons. 4 seasons we stayed in the top division under Martin Cannon, which is like a phenomenal feat. A phenomenal feat if you look back. But
and George, just looking at the players when they're coming through, is there a time in a player's career where you can go, that's the most pivotal time, or does it vary player to player?
Players are all different. Your better players, see your better players at 8, and sometimes your better players at 14 or 15 or 16. And I always used to say to my coaches, someone always comes out the pack and surprises you. Where you think maybe at 11s and 12s, maybe in 13s, 14s, think, well, I'm not too sure. And then all of a sudden, he's your best player at 16s. 17s, even 18s. So it's a kind of up and down journey, and it's important you try and keep them part of that journey. You try and get them doing the right things, which is important as well. You'll know that yourself. To get to where these people have to go to, it's tough. They've got to make huge sacrifices, a lot of sacrifices as a young player. Can't get with your pals, you got a game the next day. You can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't take drugs. All these things are falls for the young player to succeed. And when they succeed, it's a fantastic achievement. It's a huge achievement. We're missing a player that I've not even touched on is Lewis Ferguson.
Yeah,
I was waiting to hear about him.
amazing at the minute.
Lewis Ferguson is a fantastic talent and a fantastic kid. And Rangers let him go under 13s, going into 14s. Obviously, thought he wasn't good enough. And luckily enough, his dad picked up the phone to myself, and I took him into Hamilton at under 14s. And he just worked really hard. He's a hard-working kid. Did everything you asked him to go and do. 14s, 15s. When we got to 16s, and this is a strange thing, you'll think, wow, but this is what I just thought this kid's going to make it. At 16s, I offered him a full-time contract, and he was wow. Maybe didn't think he was getting one. Mum and Dad were there. Mum and Dad, fantastic people as well, so they bought into everything we did. Dad obviously played at a high level. Dad was brilliant for me. Never once did he say, do this, do that. He would always ask, what can I do to get Lewis better when he's not here, George, and different things. So he bought in it as well. Mum's a lovely person. Lots of lovely, lovely family. They were brilliant for me. And when I gave him the full-time contract at 16s, he was obviously going to under 17s football. And I'd say to him, first 3 or 4 months, I might keep you back playing 16s to try and develop you. So, not a problem. No. Some players now would think, why does he keep me back? I'm not good enough. That's how a player will react to that. No, Lewis. Lewis says, no problem. If I've got to sit back at 16s for a couple of months to develop more, that's better. Lewis, 2.5 months at 16s, and I said that he's to move on. He developed both into 17s, into 18s, into the reserve team, 13 appearances for the first team, and then went to Aberdeen for $250,000 and done very well at Aberdeen as well. And then obviously moved on to Bologna and speaks a language. You'll know that. He speaks fluent Italian. Went over there, embraced their culture, embraced their language. Captain of Bologna. Played 10 minutes 2 weeks ago in the Champions League. We've got a player from Hamilton Academical Football Club playing Champions League football in Italy.
Must make you proud.
Yeah.
Tough. So I'm so proud of him. And the other bit that probably people don't recognise, he was voted best midfielder in Italy last season. Think of the names that's on that trophy.
Wow.
He was presenting the trophy by Capello. Think of the players that's won best midfield player in Italy. We know Italian football is graced with some fantastic players, but I've got a young kid from Hamilton, from my academy. He wins that award. And it's amazing. I smile every time I see him. I'll send him texts. I often send him texts. Great kid, great family, and a huge success for our academy.
A great testament to the work that you've put in. And just for context for listeners, just in case they don't know, Lewis, his dad Derek was a footballer, and probably more recognizable on this side of the pond, Barry Ferguson, formerly of Birmingham and Rangers, was his uncle.
Yeah.
So it's a family that knows, and for them to put the trust in you to say, well, not only are we not going to interfere, but we're not going to speak up when we may not agree with some of the decisions, like keeping them back. It's fantastic. But as you said, you could be going every Saturday for years to see the players that you developed in an industry where the 1% of the 1% only ever make it.
Yes.
It's an amazing testament, and it's something on this podcast that we're always interested in, from an Irish perspective, is how can you make that 1% more realistic. So it's taken the League of Ireland a long time to become a realistic job for players and a realistic area for them to progress in. And now we're looking at the youth side of it. How can we keep the players here? Obviously, Brexit's a kind of a thing for us where they're not getting poached as early, but there is still that kind of we have to do right by these players.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you came in, it was establishing a youth development system. What kind of challenges or what do you think can be done to kind of better serve these young players with limited resources?
You have to. This will sound, but you sell them a dream, but the dream has to be realistic. Now at Hamilton, the dream was realistic because we have pictures all over the stadium. So the minute you take a young kid in at 8, he sees a Lewis Ferguson, he sees a Mikey Devlin, he sees an Ali Croft, he sees a Grant Gillespie, he sees a Danny Armstrong, he sees your under-18s winning a league championship and representing Scotland in the UEFA under-19s youth league. He sees that because they're there. The pictures are there. And we always say, paint a picture, and you don't need to paint the picture because the picture's there. So that's how we developed, because we didn't have to sell it. We didn't have to sell it. Way back, we thought, got to have a youth system. Every time we spoke, it was about the youth system. We've got a good youth system. Now, if you actually speak to people anywhere you bump into, and you say Hamilton Academical, they'll say, they've got a great youth system. Because you've promoted the youth system. They see the product gets on the pitch. That comes as a whole from owners of the football club, because owners then have to buy into, it's about young players. Managers have to buy into that. So every single person at the football club buys into us trying to put young players to go and play. That was the main. Can we get young players good enough? Yep, we can get them good enough. Can we get them to the first team? Yeah, we can do that as well, because the manager buys in it. If you're good enough, you'll play. Does the owner want to come and watch that? Yeah, of course he does. I've stood at many, and this is what I've stood in many training games, going and watching our teams play all over the country, standing with the owner of the football club, Ronnie McDonald, another owner of the football club, Les Gray. They stood and watched these games with us. So although they're owners of football clubs, they bought into what we were trying to build. And the bit we were trying to build is, can we get the 8-year-old player to the first team? But then you've got to have the patience. You've got to have the patience to think, he's a good player. He's a good player. That one's a good player. They're not a bad team. There's 4 or 5 in that. Oh no, there's 5 or 6 in that now. Oh, I think one season, the record for me getting out full-time contracts, I think we signed 9 young players one season, under 16s. 9 young players to give them a chance to go and push them into that environment. And that's the bit where you've got to have the patience. You got to give them time, and know, even taking a young kid at under 16s, you sign him at under 16s, you take him into full-time football. The body isn't built to go from 3 nights a week to a Saturday to 5 days a week, 6 days a week in a game, training twice a day. So there's pitfalls, and there's things that you try and do that tries and help. Well, obviously tries to help them, but it's really important that the belief thing is huge. You can sell it, but you don't have to sell it if you actually have it and the product's there, which we had. The product's there. People seen that. The product was there.
It's outside of talent, obviously, and hard work. What are the characteristics that you would have been looking for in a young player? Because I'm just thinking from perspective of a young player listening, or a parent of a young player listening. Like, what is it? Obviously, talent is the non-negotiable thing here, but outside of that, what's kind of the key traits?
Players will have talent, but there's a lot of players come through the system that might not have had that talent. They get that talent as they come along, as they take that journey. We tried to build. I always say we tried to build, but I did build it. We build a never give up, refuse to lose. That's we refuse, never give up. I know people think, it's easy to say, you never give up. If I was to sit down with every director of youth in the country that I competed with, and they needed 3 points to win a league championship, to go into Europe, the last place they'd want to come is Hamilton Academical Football Club. That's the last place, and that's the mentality I tried to build. Make this a tough place to come to. Make it our place. As I'm saying, me as a whole, can we make this place tough to come to? Can we make it
Stoke on a rainy Tuesday?
Well, basically, that sees mentality. Everybody's against us, and coaches. Listen, we've got a lot of fantastic coaches and physios, and all these people play a huge part as well, because it's not just me. although I led it, we get some really fantastic young coaches that have moved on to bigger and better things, as I keep saying. And, even the physio playing a part, the sports science, everybody played a part in it, but everybody bought into that model. And that's why it was successful, because we bought into that and we knew we were all looking for the same thing. On a Saturday, one of our players sticking the Hamilton Academical jersey on and going and playing in the first team. There's nothing better. I've been at many, many debuts. There's nothing better than sitting there as an academy director, along with the guys that have done this. And I always give credit to the guys. And, it's not just me did this. This is the coach at 11s, the coach at 12s, the coach at 13s, the sports science at 15s that put the wee bit extra in, the physio that maybe helped him get his mindset right for the game or whatever. They all played a huge part in trying to get them through the system. The last four, I think the last four before I left that we sold Gabriel Forsyth, 16 years of age, to Norwich. He's now in the first team environment and he's played a few games and he's always in the squad. We have Ryan Oney, who's at Sheffield United. He actually scored the other night. He's 17 years of age as well, young kid. Fantastic talent. We have Josh McDonald, who signed for Leeds, and we had Cormac Daly, who signed for Nottingham Forest. So that was the last four players that moved on. They moved on when they were 16. The kind of market's changed, as you spoke a wee bit about how do you keep your players. Before these, we were able to keep our players, and players like Lewis played in the first team and then moved on. Players like James McCarthy played in our first team and then moved on. Players like James MacArthur, who played in our first team, a lot of appearances in the first team, and then moved on. The market's kind of changed now. They're looking to try and come and get your kids at 16 and 17 at a young age group. And to be fair, if you're Hamilton Accies, you've got to try and embrace that and try and get the best out of the deal possible. You want a kid to go on and do. You want them to do well, no matter where they go. You want them to do well, whatever level they find, junior level, League One, League Two, first Premiership, whatever. You still want them to do well. So that's the most important part. So although we are selling those four products, fans will say, "Oh, but how can we not keep them to go and play?" But how could I keep Lewis Ferguson to go and play in the first team if Aberdeen are chapping the door and they want to speak to the?
Well, we see it in Ireland all the time. There's plenty of players that we'd love to keep within the league, but you don't want to hamper their success down the line. And as long as the deal's right for the club, it allows facilities to be upgraded and better coaches and everything.
Of course it does. It's putting money back into the academy and the structure, because the structure is quite stringent. So we've got an elite structure here now, where the elite clubs have to adhere to the different aspects, and it gets tough because that can cost a lot of money. I think our budget was 350,000, 400,000 pounds a year. That might not sound a lot, but for Hamilton Accies Football Club, that's a lot of money. We have a fan base of 600, 700 fans. That's no. It's no, and I'm not decrying the fan base. That's just the club. But as I said, how do you build that? How do you work that for you? You put that siege mentality, and to be fair, that worked for us because we won 2 leagues. Hamilton Accies should never be winning under 18s leagues. We should never be. I think Rangers and Celtic should be miles in front. Aberdeen strong as well. Dundee United, Hibernian Hearts. One of those seasons, our coach Dougie Emery, who's obviously now coaching at Morton, Dougie took our under 18s, and the first time we won it to qualify for the UEFA League, we were unbeaten. We were invincible the whole season.
Amazing.
The whole season.
For a youth team to pull that off, that's unbelievable.
Home and away, Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, Motherwell, Dundee United. Tough ask to go and do that, but we did it.
You touched on James McCarthy there. I think it'd be remiss of the three of us as three Irish blokes not to ask about him. What was he like as a young buck coming through?
Great kid. I'll always say he was a great kid. Great football. Great talent. Fantastic talent. I watched him when he was 15 years of age playing in our first team. 15 years of age. Still at school, playing in our first team. Do you know you couldn't do that now? You can't do it. You've got to be 16 to go and play now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
16, yeah, we've got to be 16. The law, it may have changed. And I remember one season, we stuck a 15-year-old kid in, Lennon Perry was his name, and we stuck him on our bench. and we ended up getting into bother because he hadn't turned 16, and we'd played him in a reserve game. We'd made a mistake. We should never have did that. He had to be 16 to go and play. But if that rule had been in 3 or 4 seasons before that, James might never have played for a first team. So that journey, the journey got started when he was 16. That's not a problem. He's a fantastic talent. He would have played at the highest level. But it just shows you how it changes, and it has changed. I don't know if it's went back. I've not quite looked at that yet. But I know that was one of the rules. But James played for the first team when he was 15 years of age. Under the manager was Billy Reid. And did very well for us. Fantastic talent. But same as Brian Easton. Brian Easton was part of that squad as well. Brian Easton went to Burnley. Both James McCarthy and James MacArthur both went to Wigan and did extremely well.
Myself and Killian were joking before we came on. They both played for Wigan, both played midfield, basically of the same name. It's one of those, if you ever seen them in the same room at the same time.
Exactly. Fantastic talents, both of them, by the 3 of them, including Brian Easton as well. Fantastic talents. Both James done really well. James MacArthur done very well down at Palace. He always played a long time down at Palace as well. And then James McCarthy's journey. Everton, and then obviously Palace, and then obviously back up at Celtic as well. And he had a few caps under in Ireland as well. He played in a European Championship, so I can tick that off the list as well.
Another competition represented.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. As I said, Lewis obviously will represent Scotland at some stage as well. He's had a few caps there, so I've got a signed jersey at the back of me from Lewis. His first game there as well. I've got one for Mikey Devlin, who represented Scotland as well. So people will say, it's a tough job. It's a tough job because I've broke more hearts than probably made, if you can understand that one. I can be the last line of defence that actually sits in front of a kid and takes away their dream. Going and playing first team football, and that's tough, and that takes its toll. A lot of people think, I used to laugh and joke when I had parents' meetings that if I walked into a room, it went quiet. Nobody would talk. And it can be a lonesome job, a real lonesome job, but you got to be honest and you got to be upfront. And what I always try to do is, if it wasn't the environment at Hamilton, I always try to find something that they could go and play, because if we can just try and keep them playing football, that was important for me. And as I said, the mental health side of that comes into that as well. When things aren't going great, some kids need a wee bit more time. Some kids need an arm on their shoulder. Some kids needed a rocket up their backside, and that's just the way they reacted it. And it's changed now. The environment's changed. It's changed, but we have a lot of talented kids. I've seen a lot of talented kids out there, and I still see them play week in and week out, and sometimes think, wow, why is he not playing? Just been given a chance. Just get somebody to believe in them.
Just for any listener, like you mentioned Billy Reid there, bringing through James McCarthy and MacArthur. Just if anybody's kind of going, why do I recognise that name? Billy Reid actually went on to be Graham Potter's assistant manager from Ostersunds all the way to Chelsea. Just to put anybody's like nerdy brain like mine at rest.
They're right. Both of them did a fantastic job at Brighton as well.
Yeah, it was an amazing team, and
very successful.
And any listeners of the pod knows I've been a very big fan of Potter and his coaching staff for a long time. But you mentioned there, like with the mental health for young players, and obviously with the as you mentioned the law change on 16-year-olds and protections of playing in the men's games. Like we've seen over the years, the likes of the English FA bring in the tape around the pitches this is for playing zones and for staff, for coaches, and this is for where the parents are to be respectful. Do you think governing bodies are doing enough to kind of nurture the mental health of young players and give them the kind of the best possibility to grow? Because I think it's one of them things that like they can never really do enough. But have we gotten to a stage now where, in comparison to maybe 10 years ago, that this should foster a much better generation or two in the next couple of years?
It's a tough question, to be fair. It's a tough one to answer. Do we do enough? I don't think we do.
And what is that? What do you think that is? What do you think we that could be done more?
I don't think we pay enough attention to the kids. I don't think coaches pay enough attention to the kids. No, I'm not having a go at any coaches. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, if you're a coach and you coach a team 3 times a week and take the game on a Saturday, you'll get to know your players. If you're good, you'll get to know your players. You'll get to know different things that you'll see, and you'll get to see different behaviours. And if you're a good coach, and we've got loads of good coaches, fantastic coaches there, they'll manage that best they can. But you're asking a coach to do the training session, organise the team, this and that. It's a lot for a coach to do. And then you're saying, if we're really good at what we do, get to know the player. Get to know the player.
The kid behind the player, I suppose, is what you're getting at.
And that's key to how probably I was successful, because that's what I did. I made sure I knew the player, or I knew the players. I knew the parents. I knew their background. I knew that. I just took my time to do that. And that's probably maybe I was a wee bit more successful, because there was players I could give a bit to, oh, come on, you've got to do better. Or there's players you need to put an arm around them, and you would know, man, there's something not quite right here. So it's talking to the players, and you're trying to educate them. It's not always about winning. It can't always be about winning, but winning's important. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Winning's important. Winning's very important. It's how do you bounce back from mistakes, because you're not going to see that in the player until you actually see it happen. So I always used to go to games, and I always look for characters in games. People used to laugh. I'd sit out of the way. I'd just go myself and sit and I'd watch the game. I'd look for a character. Sometimes I would look, I quite enjoy being 4-0 down here. Now I'm going to see what I've got. Now I'm going to see wee Joe roll up the sleeves, get stuck in, go and try and drive forward. And that's where you probably find more of your talent, when you're looking at teams when it's against you. When it's more against you, you look for the ones that kind of stick out, or the ones that maybe give that wee bit extra, the ones that never give up, the ones that just keep going. And how do they bounce back? You then look at them training the next day. If they're in the under 18s or in the next day, you look at how their mood swings are. You look at where they are. Does it affect them that much? Can they bounce back from that? Do they sit moping all day? Because it's tough. It's really tough. So back to the question, do we do enough mental health wise? I'd like to think we do, but I'm not sure we do. I think we've got a lot of good.
And George,
sorry.
George,
Yeah.
just a quick one to tie into that question is on aftercare for players. Have you seen an improvement in that in years? And what is the process once the players let go?
The process is a tough process. First and foremost, the players' world basically falls apart the minute they let go. So how do you deal with that? It's a tough one. Some parents and some kids will take offence to the guy that's telling them that, which is sometimes me, But what I always try to do is always try to find them another club. I always try to keep them involved in football. No, I'm not going to get everything right. I'm never going to do it. You're never going to get everything right. You can just be honest and upfront. Sometimes honesty might have been a bit much, but I always believe that being honest and upfront and just telling them what you think was the best route. Trying to find them another club is what I always try to do. Can we find them another club? I'll pick up the phone to any academy director and ask them, listen, take a wee look at such and such. He's not quite right for me, but I think he can do something for you. And I'm not decrying with your system. I'm just saying, have a look at him. He might be something that you might actually use, or you might actually.
And would you ever get parents or kids reacting that you're doing them a real service? They're trying to find them a new home to play football in, but they're kind of like, no, you don't value me. I'm out. Don't bother. I'll find myself.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, you get a lot of parents. Yeah, you get a lot of parents, and most parents will be realistic. And I always used to speak to my coaches. Parents will always ask the coach, "How's wee Joe Bloggs doing?"
Mm.
Sometimes a coach's easy way out would be, "He's doing okay. He's doing okay." And then 4 months later, you're sitting in a room where the coach is actually talking to the parent and saying, "Nah, he's not done that well." But I asked you 4 months ago how he was doing. You said he was doing okay. So I always used to say to the coaches, see if he's not doing well, please be honest. Please be honest. Because what we did at Hamilton, every single game that we played, I designed a match report. Every single match report was there for the game, so they would get a rating. They would get a rating in the game. They would get the time in the game as well, so we knew exactly how many minutes this kid had on the park. We knew what position he played, wherever he played, and we knew if he'd scored goals, whatever. So the paper trail was a must, because you got 130, 140 kids, so you need to be able to identify that. So,
and would the players have access to that, or that's just for internal?
No. What would happen is when the players, what I used to do with my players was I used to do the game on a Saturday, and this is when I was a coach and I was still working. And the Monday, I sat with my players and I asked them to mark themselves and tell me what they thought. That's what I did. And they would say, maybe 10 was excellent. No, you're never going to get excellent. Never going to get excellent. 9, very good. 8 was good. 7, satisfactory. 6, looking for better. And 5, you would probably say, poor game. So that was the marking system. And it was only a paper trail. It's only a paper trail to you can keep an eye on the player and how he's progressing. Why is it? And your times we're going to say, oh, he's played 60, and then maybe next week he's only playing 30. That's a bit strange. He got 60 last week and he did really well. And why is he only getting 30? So then you would be able to speak to the coach. What's happened there? Oh, he was late for training, or he was such and such, or he got late to the game. He was due to play and had to. So it was a good way of looking at that as well, because you could look for different symptoms, different patterns that would help you go and try and fix that. And that was a great thing. That's why we did that. And it was also important that you could sit down with the parents 3 times a year and go through that process with them as well. So you could sit and say 7, 7, 8, 6, 5, and then you say, oh, yeah, a couple of it. And then see if I usually seen 3 6s in a row, I would think, all right, I'm going to have a wee chat with that coach and ask him. There's no really, what's his 6s? Because he's went from an 8 to a 6. So what's actually happened? It could be a growth spurt. Could be injuries, could be, there's loads of different things. Now, I'm not saying we got it right, but it was a tool that we used that helped. It helped us immensely. I think they'll still use that. That tool will still be there. I think that's important for a director to be able to see that as well. So, it's just your way of gauging how well the player's doing.
Have you seen a kind of we hear so much about it now, especially in the men's game, data analytics, like all that kind of stuff. Have you seen that kind of come into the youth setup? Because that sounds like albeit a slightly blunter way of doing it, but that's fundamentally the same thing.
Kind of early Brighton vibes,
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, yeah, the game has progressed that way, because just before I was leaving, about a year previous, we brought in a young kid, Joseph McGlynn, 21-year-old kid. We brought him in as our coaching the coaches analyst. That's what he was. He was brilliant, top drawer. Matter of fact, probably one of the best I've worked with. Absolutely fantastic at what he does. Yeah, he works at Queen's. He's now moved on to Queen's Park. But when Joe came in, Joe would analyse training. He would take every single coach in our system. Joe would mic the coach up and watch his system and film it. And then Joe would go through the system. And then we had certain marking criteria, how often was the ball in play in training? How often was it out of play in training? How often did the coach speak? What was the positives that the coach spoke? What was the negatives? So Joe was able to sit with all our coaches and he would sit and say, well, maybe you had 10 negatives to 1 positive. Maybe the ball was out 30 minutes of your 60 minutes training session. So he was able to analyse all that and then work with the coaches. He also worked with the players as well. So he would then bring the players in as well. The games would be filmed and Joe would sit down with the players and say, well, could you have did this? What would you have did there? Maybe you could have this. And so you were bouncing ideas off, but you're actually trying to get them to answer the questions.
And was that welcomed by the coaches at first? Because obviously, if you're getting a bit, filleted, shall we say.
You will have people that are against it. But we embraced it at Hamilton. And I asked my coaches, embrace this, because he's not there to say you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. He's there to make us better. That was his role. Can you make us better? Can we, that small tweak that might give us that extra 5%, that might make us that 5%, 10% better? And to be fair, all the elite clubs had to take one of these coaching the coaches roles on as a full-time basis. So every single club had a coach, the coaches one. And for me, young man was immense, absolutely fantastic at what he did. And I still speak to Joe on a regular basis. I think his knowledge of football is and you've got to embrace it. He would see things and you think, wow, I like that. He knew how to talk to the coaches. He made my coaches better. That's taken part of my role away. I didn't have to worry about that.
At 21 as well, I
wasn't at a game and Joe was at the game. Joe would tell me exactly what's happened in the game. Could do this better. Maybe I did this. We moved the ball really well. We got it for the back. We played at the build. And Joe would put scenarios in and he'd work with these guys and work with the coaches. And then at the end, Joe would be able to sit in a 3-4 months and sit and say, look, there's all the positives. And he'd be able to show the coaches, look at the movement of this one. Look at this. Look at how we moved the ball from there to there. That's what we worked on in training. That's a positive. That's worked for us. So obviously he was there a year. I obviously left after the year. But I think if I'd still have been there, Joe would still be there, to be fair. But the first year was fantastic. The second year, you would be able to gauge the first year and the second year to see if you've got it better. Then see when you get another 3 or 4 years, then you can use the 4 years of, right, okay, we know all the different aspects. How do we make it better? So you were able to gauge it against the previous years. So it's still in its early stages. But for me, that was a huge help. Having someone else to bounce off your coaches is great, because your coaches would then go and ask questions and different things. And Joe would send the games to them. All the coaches would get the games. So all coaches would get the games after the game. And all the players would get their own clips as well. So a player would be able to go home and watch his own clips in the game as well.
That's a brilliant infrastructure that you guys built.
Think about the work's involved in that. Every single player in your academy is able to go home and look at their clips. Just their clips, not anybody else's clips. My worry was, if you're looking at other people's clips, then you know what they're like. WhatsApp, so I've had this one's better than this one. No. What we're going to try and do is just, if a player can just look at his own clips, fantastic. So that's how it kind of progressed to get better. So players were able to sit down and look at their 25 touches of the ball in the game, and then Joe would ask them, could you have done anything better? What did you do there? What was your thought process there? And most of the time it would be, well done there, you done really well there, you drove the game well, that pass was a great pass, that's the pass I'd have played under pressure. So it was a fantastic tool.
He seems a coach beyond his years.
Of course. Well, listen, the for me, the man will go to the top, and I've said this to him, he'll go to the top, and he's working at Queen's Park just now, but I think the kid's fantastic at what he does. He just sees the game, knows how to talk to people, and for me, certainly one of my best signings.
And actually, shout out to Joe for putting us in touch with you, George. So
yeah,
he's great.
Joe, it was Joe. Before him, it was Declan, to be fair. Declan McKean was another one that was fantastic and did really well for us as well. Declan now works at Hearts. So Declan had actually done an interview with Joe. And, Declan was great. Declan did all our stuff before Joe came in. And Declan says, listen, I think you take this guy in. I think he's got a real good chance here, George. I think you'll like him. And it was on the word of Declan McKean saying, bring this guy in. He'll do all right for you. And I never looked back. I thought the kid was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and actually, I very conscious of your time. And you've
been you're
fantastic.
I'm okay with that. You're okay.
Been fantastic to chat to you, but I want to kind of ask you a slightly more general question on, like, I think a lot of football fans have an idea of what an academy is, and it's going to be big and like an overall structure and lots of full-time coaches, but obviously that's just not the case in for majority of teams in majority of countries. Are you seeing in Scotland a move to more full-time coaches and staff? Because, like, it's one of the big things here in Ireland. Like, there is like a handful of full-time academic staff in the country, and it's one of the big kind of moves from a lot of, like, we spoke to a former Leeds player and League of Ireland player, Alan Colley, recently enough, and that was one of his big, I don't want to say bugbears, but it was kind of like, if we want to push on, this is one of the most important things that we can do, and invest now for a decade in the future. Are you seeing that kind of move to a bit more of a full-time structure in Scotland? Yeah,
well, to be fair, the academy went full-time. Most of its posts went full-time. We went for a kind of part-time basis to, obviously, director of youth was myself. Below that, we had our under-18s manager was full-time, so he was working with your kids every day. You would have an under 16s to 13s head of academy who was full-time as well, and then you would have your, which I think is the most important part of your academy, is your junior academy, your junior structure. You know, with guys like Kevin Taggart, who was a head of, a chap when I first started. It was Matt Boyle who took that role. Matt Boyle was great for us as well. Moved on to bigger and better things as well, and then we moved on to Kevin Taggart, who was in the setup. And Kevin, although we say it's a full-time post, they work at night, so they most of these guys were still doing some of their day jobs during the day, and then working full-time at night. So the academy is at night. So, you know, these guys would be doing all the hours under the sun, if truth be told. But they did it for a love of what they were done, and that's the wee bit that I don't know how other academies work. I always found that the important age groups for me were the ones at 8 and 9 and 10, because if you can ingrain the right stuff, you reap the rewards later on, and that's why we've been really. I think we've got about 17, 18 players that's played at every single age group, and then the first team. That's a phenomenal feat, But if we get it right at that, we've got a chance. I always used to not so much hold them up on a pedestal, but these are important because these coaches are working with 7 and 8-year-olds, and that can be quite challenging, very challenging. But to be fair, Kevin was another mainstay for myself that they looked after that part of the academy. Then they progressed into the junior academy. The junior academy into the senior academy, which was 13s to 16s. And then for 16s, obviously, you were going into under 18s football, basically, because we would sign them at 16 and play them at 16s at under 18s football. That didn't worry me. That didn't worry me because they were 2 years younger. You go and fling them in and you go and let them play. And there's been, when we won the league the second time round, the first season we did okay, but we took a couple of doings. Doings meaning we took a couple of 5-6 nothings against us at under 18s football. These kids were playing. They'd be 16 and they're playing against 18-year-olds, which is 2 years of difference, which is a huge factor. And we went through a wee bit of a time where we were getting beat every week, and I kept saying to them, just believe the process. It's not about winning. Just believe the process. And I think one night we could beat 5-0 by Hibs one night, and I could see the kids were really dejected. And I knew they were really dejected, and I thought, right, okay, how can I appease this? How can I make this better? I says, I can't make it any better because they're learning. It wasn't about the result, they're learning. These kids will learn. They're tough challenges. They're playing against bigger players, they're playing against stronger players, they're playing against weaker players. But I'm then saying, well, you maybe need to think that a wee bit faster. You might need to move the ball a wee bit quicker. You might have to do something different. You might have to go and, get a wee bit tougher in that environment. And then after that game, I was driving home and I thought to myself, I don't know how I can do this. But when I got home, I said to my wife, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak to all the kids on Monday. And when the kids came in on Monday, I said to them, right, you're playing under 18s football. Okay, right. So what I'm going to do is this weekend, we're going to play the under 15s. How do you think you'll do against under 15s? And they went, you kidding me on? We'll double figure them. We'll take loads of goals off them. We'll take this. We'll take that off them. I said, so the bravado-ness comes out of the dressing room. So you think you're going to go and beat our under 15s ends? You think that's just like that? Yeah, they're 2 years younger than you. Think you're going to go? Yeah, of course we're going to beat them because they're still to grow. They're still to this. They're still to that. When I got to the end of the conversation, I says, you guys are the under 15s and under 18s league just now. That's what you guys are. There's a picture, painted. Do you understand what I'm saying now? And to be fair, know that they didn't understand. They kind of thought, no, he's right. He's right in what he says. We are the younger ones and we're learning, and they had another 2 years at that age group. The next year we won the league. We won the league the next year. We won the league convincingly.
Can't do better than that.
I'm not saying that was the. We won that because we learned. We learned because we took a few batterings, we took a few, scores against us, but we learned in the process of doing that, and we knew if we keep doing the right things, we'll get there. We'll keep sticking to the formation. We'll keep sticking to the things that we do well. We'll keep sticking to we'll keep doing it. We'll keep doing it, and we'll be successful. And to be fair to the kids won that league, and they were very, very successful. We played Mould in the first round of the Champions League, obviously Youth League. And we went over there. It was cold, obviously, being in Norway, it was cold. And we lost the game 3-0. I was a bit disappointed. But we were young. We're playing under 19s, remember? Most of our kids are 17. There's that age gap again. Although you're playing under 18s football, the UEFA League is an under 19s league, so they're a year older. In that team, 2 or 3 of the players, the following week after we'd played them, were playing in the first team against Bayern Munich or something like that in the European, whatever it was. Wow. So we're saying, wow. So we lost 3-0, and we went back home, and we lost an early goal to go 4-0 down. But my kids never gave up and got it back to 4 each. We were sitting at 4 each with 10 minutes to go in that game, and we lost a goal late on, and we lost a tie. But I thought, your guys are 4-0 down, but my kids had the endeavour just to keep going, and that's what we tried to build. They keep going endeavour, They keep going. If I talk about the previous one in Europe where we played Bâle, we played Bâle home and away. We were 2 each over in Bâle. Bâle's a beautiful city. I don't know if you guys have been there in Switzerland. It's a beautiful city, beautiful footballing culture, fantastic. Just for us to go into a different culture and embrace it was fantastic. First game, you're obviously nervous because you're competing for your country. We got 2 each, and then we took Bâle back home, and we had 4,000 of a crowd in that game.
Oh my God!
I think that's the biggest attendance apart from the Old Firm games. When we played Celtic Rangers, I still think that's the biggest attendance. I think it's the biggest attendance for a youth game as well, to be fair. But we had 4,000. Colin McGowan and Ronnie McDonald that day gave all the tickets out for nothing. They embraced the community, embraced everybody and said, everybody come to this game. We'll give you a ticket. Come in and enjoy this game. And we had 4,000. And they scored first. We then equalised. And they scored again. And we scored in the dying minute of the game to take it to 2 each. And it went to penalties, and we won in penalties to get into the next round.
In front of 4,000 people. In
front of 4,000 people. We ended up playing Midtjylland in the next round, and we did all. Midtjylland were a good team. I think Midtjylland got away to the semi-final that year. So, we've embraced that. We've embraced a lot of good things that's happened at the football club, to be honest with you. There's thousands, there's millions. You'd need 10 hours for me to sit and talk all day about it, to be honest with you. I don't mean that to be bad. I don't mean that to be ignorant or being, but there's just loads of different memories. I'll go into different aspects of other place because it always flips back. When somebody listens to this, you'll say, you never spoke about that player, George. You forgot about that player. There's that many players, guys. Honestly.
Well, see, that's why podcasts are great. We can always have you back for part 2 because, George, that was absolutely fantastic, and for us, definitely like an eye opener to the reality of youth development, and with the League of Ireland being kind of a favourite of ours, and earlier in the journey, it's fantastic to see what you've been able to do, and like the players that have come through at all levels for you are a testament to the work that you put in, and Hamilton has put in. So we thank you so much for taking the time.
It's not a problem. Listen, it's as I said, now I've kind of ventured into. I'm venturing into the mental health side of it. I'm going to try and help these young players. I've got young players I'm just helping with just now with mental health and different things. So probably the next 3 or 4 months, that's what I'm sort of pushing myself into. I'm going to start a new job, and hopefully I can get most of these kids and try and help them best we can. I think that's the way forward because we lose a lot of them. And I think if we can try and have someone that not so much cares, but someone that knows, I know the system, I know how it works, I know what it takes to be a good player, I know what it takes to get there. And strangely enough, I've applied for a couple of jobs and not really got anywhere in football, which is a bit strange. It's a bit strange, but that's okay. That's just life. Life changes. Life changes. But the mental health side, it's the bit that I'm concentrating on big time just now. I think that's really important for us guys.
Well, I have to say, George, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and that's a real noble thing you're doing, and I think we need more guys like you in football. So thank you very, very much.
I appreciate that, guys. Listen, anytime you have my number, you phone me anytime, guys. I'll certainly come on and help best you can.
Messi. Oh my goodness! Balotelli.